Hey everybody, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back here on Saturday morning. I'm here to recap what's been a busy week. In Nebraska news, there's been a lot going on with the football team, basketball. We have the volleyball team today playing for the Final Four. So, and everybody around the world on YouTube and the social channels with Big Red Banter and Husker Big Red. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the chat. And Danny, how you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing good. I've been busy this week, a little tired after a busy week of news, but I've always said, and this may be the wrong attitude, but the off-season rumor season is a lot more exciting than the regular season for football, at least as of late. And I suppose I'll get to basketball talk eventually, but I kind of buried the last game out of my mind. But other than that, I think we're doing okay. We said this last year, and I feel like we're saying it till we're blue in the face, but I truly believe it's an exciting time to be a Nebraska fan right now.
It is an exciting time. It's always an exciting time to be here on the Husker Big Red YouTube channel with you guys. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. That interaction, in our comment section, all that stuff really helps us out. We really appreciate it. So, thanks for everybody joining us. Hey, Andrew and Steve, it's good to see
Good
you
morning,
guys
guys.
again.
Yeah.
And go Big Red, of course, as always. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting day. Like, how excited is everybody for Arkansas and Nebraska today? I know everybody wants to talk the transfer portal quarterbacks, but it's going to be a big volleyball match today at the Bob.
Absolutely. And, this is a young team, but also a battle tested team in the sense that John Cook is at the helm, and he's certainly done, a big match or two in his time at Nebraska. So it's going to be a fun day. And, I think it's a testament to how well run, Cook has made this program. Hopefully, other sports either take cues or follow suit because Cook is cooking right now.
And he was able to land Merritt Beeson in the
Mm,
transfer portal, and she's been spectacular, but also a really great freshman class. I mean, three
yeah,
freshmen, I believe, all region players. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting day. Hopefully they can pay it off. And Wisconsin obviously is still looming out there. They're in the Elite Eight.
yeah.
Stanford I think is another team. But it'll be fun to hopefully get a chance to play Wisconsin for the national championship. At some point, I would like to think that our football team can compete for a national championship as well. So yeah, guys, let's get to it. We're going to chat here till about 9:30 Eastern, about 8:30 Central. So about 20-30 minutes here. So get your questions in. But there's been a lot of talk on the transfer portal stuff. Obviously, everybody is focused in on the quarterbacks. Kyle
Mm,
McCord obviously is the hot topic of conversation. There's been rumors of, him going to be taking a visit early next week, the Twitter X or whatever you call it. I've seen those rumors. I haven't seen it, you know, from any trusted reporters or anything, but if that
neither have
visit
I.
does,
Yeah.
but if that visit does happen, like if he does come and visit soon or next week, what do you think that means for Nebraska's chances, Danny?
I think it means very good because I've heard all sorts of things on, X talking about Kyle McCord as being the favorite. And look, I've had my doubts about Kyle McCord, but the more I watch his film, the more I think he would be a really good fit for this program. And not only may we get Kyle McCord if McCord comes to Lincoln, but we also may get his teammate Julian Fleming, and I would gladly take that package deal any day of the week.
Yeah, it's 24/7 Sports. Mike Schaefer just had a kind of an insider report that Nebraska's in good shape with Julian Fleming. So take that to mean whatever it will. But usually, I mean, a lot of times with these kind of transfer portal things, I mean, there are some guys where it's kind of a drawn out process, but some of them have kind of an idea of where they want to go. And I wrote this at HuskerBigRed.com this week. I think Julian Fleming and Kyle McCord would be a dream scenario for Nebraska because Fleming, while he hasn't had even 1,000 yards at Ohio State. I mean, he's had to play with some of the best, wide receivers in the country. So just getting out on the field there is tough. And I think, him, Malachi Coleman, and Jalen Lloyd, Thomas Fedoni. I mean, you can trot those guys out there with your 11 personnel, and you're in a pretty good spot offensively. And that would be, I think, an attractive group for almost any quarterback because I know that Coleman and Lloyd obviously have a lot to prove, and Fleming too, but you have basically 2 5-star guys in Coleman and Fleming, who was a 5-star. Coleman was just outside that range, and then Jalen Lloyd, who joined Marvin Harrison this season, being the only guy in the Big Ten with 3 touchdown receptions of over 50 yards. And then you add Fedoni in next year. He's going to be even better. I mean, he got good down the stretch this year, but next year we're going to really see the actual Thomas Fedoni. Like, Wes Welker, the year after he tore his ACL, was okay, and then the year after that he was like really Wes Welker again, and that's what I think we're going to see. Yeah, yep, I believe, yep.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I remember that year well.
So that's what I think we're going to see out of Thomas Fedoni next year.
I agree, and people are saying, "Oh, what does Nebraska have to sell? We have inexperienced young receivers, and we have a running back room with not a ton of depth, and this, that, and the other thing." Well, once you get a good quarterback, those inexperienced receivers can really show what they can do. I mean, I think honestly, the person who benefited the most from the inconsistent play at quarterback last year was Thomas Fedoni, because he had a connection with Heinrich Harburg, and he even was able to get on the same page with Chuba Purdy. So I think honestly you can sell these young receivers as being an asset, because truthfully I don't think they got a fair shot to show what they could do. But yeah, Julian Fleming and Kyle McCord, I'd gladly take that any day of the week. I think McCord would allow Nebraska to be able to compete for a Big Ten West title, and also give Nebraska more of a national brand recognition than they already have, because right now everybody knows what Nebraska football is, and what the program means, but at the same time college football is a very "what have you done for me lately" business, and Nebraska quite honestly hasn't done much lately. So getting Nebraska back on that national recognition scale to where kids of today understand what the program means, and not just oh, back in the 90s we won with Tom Osborne, I think that's important too.
Definitely, as I did want to say, there is no more Big Ten West after this year, so it's all one big division. But at any rate, we are going into the 12-team playoff though, and so basically any team that's ranked going into November is going to have an opportunity to put itself into the playoff mix. So it's not like super far fetched, especially if you get a guy like McCord who I mean, it's really interesting if you've seen like Urban Meyer's kind of can't believe that Kyle McCord transferred. And I mean, I guess, the thing is that he didn't, Ryan Day said that he didn't guarantee him the starting job. So I can understand that. And, I mean, this guy played really well. Look, he didn't play as well as CJ Stroud, but there's not very many guys that are going to play that well. I mean, that dude
it's
is
hard to follow CJ Stroud.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, if Nebraska had a quarterback last year that threw 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, we probably would have won 11 games, maybe 10. But there's the only game really on that schedule that wasn't winnable for Nebraska this year was Michigan. And even the Colorado game, if you get quality quarterback play in the first half when they have their opportunities, it's an entirely different game. So, I mean, it really, I do think that, especially with the schedule next year, the one holdup that we do have that we should mention with Kyle McCord is, and this has kind of been brought out, is that he doesn't, necessarily like the idea of going back to Columbus and playing Ohio State, and I can understand that.
I mean,
but
that's all like, I don't know. That's, until you hear it from his mouth, that's just speculation in my opinion. I mean,
yeah,
so time will tell, but I mean, I don't know if I would put that, and I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying generally speaking, I don't know if I would make, put that as a huge storyline yet.
it's just it's always the thing that I was worried about. Does he want to play? How does he? Because I mean, maybe it's like he likes his teammates and doesn't want to play against those. You know what I mean? Like, unless you absolutely have to. But at the same time, if that's your stance, then you really can't play in the Big Ten. So I mean, I don't really think that that's necessarily the case. I mean, some of the other teams that I've heard kind of in the rumor mill for him are like Syracuse and Pitt. Mississippi State picked up a quarterback, and they were one of the ones in the mix. They got Blake Shapen, who was another guy that Nebraska was kind of in the mix for. But
and
I
Sam
wanted to
is right on this point. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see if that's actually true. like I said, I'm not going to believe it until I hear from McCord's mouth or he doesn't suit up against Ohio State next season. But
I wanted to get back to this question from Rick. So, who who do you guys think that we will get? And then do you think that we'll get two quarterbacks? And you guys can kind of throw your answers here into the chat too, and we can kind of discuss it. But do you think right now, Danny, that Nebraska is going to get Kyle McCord? I'll just ask you straight out. Is that your prediction
yes,
or?
yeah, Sam Levitt and Kyle McCord are my two because I think we will need two. So I think Kyle McCord. I'm not going to say it's a done deal or anything like that, but I feel very good about Nebraska, landing McCord. And Rick said he heard that McCord will be here on Monday. So, I mean, I think things are going to move quickly once that happens. And damn, it's just exciting to think about, isn't it?
There has been, there's been talk of it. I mean, there's some Twitter accounts and stuff that had talk of McCord. I mean, and that's why I like to say rumors because they're not really, it's just kind of like anonymous Twitter accounts, but they have had it's like some credible information before. So I do
Yeah.
think it's worthy to pass along. But that's why we're saying like rumors because it's not like a verified. It's not nobody from 24/7 or one of the reporters that we know or even a lot of times kids even say it themselves, like on their own, Twitter account. Hey, I'm going to Nebraska this week. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do think that Nebraska offers a good situation though for Kyle McCord. Like I said, most of the I mean, we don't know for sure that Bryce Benhart's going to come back yet, but most of the offensive line looks like it's going to be back, and some exciting young talented guys there too. The defense is going to be pretty strong, I think. So it's a good situation for a proven quarterback, and that's what Nebraska needs. And it also does seem like that if they need to spend, $2 million, I don't think Kyle McCord's going to cost that much, but
No.
he's going to cost probably $1 million.
Cam
And
Ward is going to cost probably around $2 million.
yeah,
Truthfully.
probably. Yeah. So yeah, I think it will be. I think Kyle McCord would be perfect for this team, and it does seem like that the 1890 in the NIL stuff is ready to go. So
It's interesting because they put out a video this week, like an introductory video explaining what they are, and nothing like a donation and a quarterback chase to really get your NIL operation moving. But anyway,
I
so I'll say yes to this question.
I did want to.
Good.
Sorry, well, I just did want to say, I'm skeptical they can get McCord and Levitt. I feel like Levitt's going to want to go somewhere that he can start right away, but that doesn't mean that they can't get him. I do think there's a good chance, but at any rate, just wanted to throw that out there. And then Josh, yeah. So if we get Levitt and McCord, does Chuba and Harburg, do they both leave?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for either of them to stay really, because by getting those two, you're saying that you want to completely remake the quarterback room. And so, I mean, Chuba's already done his time on the bench. I don't see why he wouldn't leave. Harburg, I mean, he performed well in spots last year, but in comparison to say Levitt and McCord, he's not really the best quarterback option.
I think it depends, and this is where I could see what I could see happening with Chuba, even if they just get McCord, is I could see him entering the portal but not making a decision just to see, because he's a guy that really could see what's out there. If another Power 5 team, is like, hey, we're going to give you a chance, but if not, I mean, the way Nebraska has their NIL set up, they have like a base amount of money, right? So he's already getting
Right.
NIL here, and then Kyle McCord only has 1 year left, so theoretically, and I'm not sure how much time Chuba has left, so just bear with me. But theoretically, he could, potentially redshirt this year and still have maybe another year to start. I'd have to look at what he's done with all of his. And actually, I think he already did a redshirt. But at any rate, I
I think
definitely
he won
think,
up Florida State. Chuba did it for the red shirt.
yeah, but I do think he's had his COVID year. So let's see, because so I'm not sure if that would work out, but I mean, I would expect him to stay. I do think that Harburg might stay because I don't think that there's going to be like if he jumps into the transfer portal, I don't think teams are going to be beating down his door, like even group of 5 teams to have him be their starter. Maybe an
Yeah.
FCS team, but for Nebraska, I think he could have a specific role, like I've said, Wildcat type quarterback. They could try to make him a tight end, but just make him give him a Taysom Hill package, get the football into his hands, because the one thing that the quarterback does, even if the defense knows that you put him in there and the defense knows that the quarterback's going to run, it gives you an extra blocker. And in short yardage situations, that can be, a real advantage. And the thing about it is he's not like a halfback. He can throw the ball a little bit. So if teams really are going to like overplay his package, they can. I mean, he showed it this year. He hit Lloyd and Coleman down the field. So I do think they could keep Harburg and limit some of these, because the thing about it is, like, it's nice to say, yeah, we want to be a running team in the Big Ten, but how many running quarterbacks are there in the Big Ten that actually last, like, for the entire season?
Well, I think they realized once the Sims thing didn't work out pretty early on, like they had to change their offense to where they could at least move the football down the field. I don't think you're going to see, you know, the as much running as we did last year. I think, part of the thing that drove us crazy was Marcus Satterfield's insistence to, pass these deep throws and go and, have, quick fast, drives early. And I think that's the offense that he wanted to run, but we just couldn't run because we didn't have the personnel. I mean, now I think we're gonna hopefully have a more, deep threat downfield offense with, a complementary running game, not making the running game, the entire focal point of the offense like we had to do, quite frankly.
And yeah, Vince, you make a good point. So if the $1 million mercenary goes down in game 2, like this year, you're not worried about having a backup. I mean, I definitely am. I would love if Chuba Purdy would stay here, and I think there's a chance he could stay here. I think Sam Levitt would be a good backup. I'm skeptical that Nebraska could get him. I think they would still go get another guy. I think they're going to get 2 guys in the portal. I just don't know if they're going to get McCord and Levitt, but yeah, they need to have somebody besides. If you get McCord and if the other guys leave, you got to get somebody else that's actually played college football, in my opinion, which isn't easy to do because everybody wants to start. So, I mean, it's easy to say, like, hey, let's go get a veteran backup. This isn't free agency in the NFL where, you know what I mean? There's only 32 jobs. There's 120, 30 starting jobs out there, and everybody wants one. So, it can be really difficult to get a guy to come be the backup. I mean, you do have Daniel Kalen, and I do. He's enrolling early, and I do think he's an Elite 11 quarterback. So I mean that's one potential option, and that's why I think it wouldn't be bad to have Harburg around because he at least has experience and he can at least step into if he has to go into a game, like he's won Big Ten football games before. So that's why I hope that at least one of those veteran guys sticks on the roster.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. And I don't have any inside knowledge. I just kids want to play, and I think Harburg. I feel like Purdy would be able to get another shot somewhere, like you said earlier. I'm not sure about Harburg, but I would love to see Harburg stick around if they can find a role for him. But we'll see. I mean, it's just crazy to think about less than a month after the season ends, like 3 weeks or something. We're already talking about remaking the room, and we definitely need to do that.
Yeah, and it would be awesome to let Daniel Kalen learn a little bit. I don't think he's going to be the starter next year. Not basically if Nebraska has their way, because you definitely putting a freshman out there is not the way that you really typically want to go about it. Sometimes they are great. I mean, we've seen it work before. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not ideal. He just doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to come in and light up. I think he needs time to develop. That year to develop is really crucial, and especially
to develop
at the college
properly,
level.
because we've had a guy like Luke McCaffrey, sit on the bench for a year or so, or a guy like even Noah Vidral when he was here, or Andrew Bunch. We've had backup quarterbacks, have those years to develop, and they just didn't develop. So if we develop Kalen properly, I think that's going to be the most important thing, because we haven't had a solid quarterback room and a consistent quarterback room in quite some time.
And yeah, Sam, I do think that he would probably move around to tight end, but I'm just saying I still think you could give him some snaps at quarterback because he's still pretty effective in those running situations. Like
I don't know where he would fit at tight end, to be honest with you, because you have Ian Flint, Carter Nelson, Thomas Fedoni, Nate Borkacher. Or no, did he graduate? Is he graduating?
I don't believe so.
No, I
No.
don't believe so either. So that's 4 tight ends right there. So I don't even know where he would fit.
I mean, you can always find room for, like the thing about Heinrich is I feel like he'd be a pretty good block, like he actually probably could do like the Duranian Bonner, what he did, but actually do that a lot better because, I just feel like he'd be a much more effective
Yeah.
blocker, So I just feel like, you could find a way with him. Who knows? I think it's interesting. Nebraska hasn't had a lot of guys leave in the portal yet. So I do think that shows that the way that they have their NIL set up, like the bottom level guys in the roster aren't like, trying to leave quickly to get NIL somewhere else. So I do think that that's a good thing because, I mean, there's only like 3 weeks left in the portal. So, it doesn't make sense. Like if guys for Nebraska, I mean, like I understand teams that have like, or in the playoff or whatever, if you're going to wait, but there's no reason for any Nebraska player to wait. I mean, except like Chuba Purdy trying to see what's going to happen at the quarterback position, or maybe, maybe Nebraska adds somebody at your position and then you jump in after that. But I don't think that there's going to be any like top end guys on the roster that are jumping in the portal at this point.
Speaking of guys leaving, you also had Quentin Newsom and Omar Brown declare for the NFL draft, and Brown had a great year this year. So I think even though he doesn't have consistent tape at Nebraska like he did, like normal draft prospects do, I think it was smart of him to go. And I think Newsom, obviously he's been around the program for quite some time. Excuse me, and I think I'll be interested to see where they go because Omar Brown also has some tape from UNI. So Brown had a great year, and I think this was as good a time as any for him to try to see if he can make it in the NFL.
I think one thing that helps Omar Brown is teams play a lot of nickel and dime defense
Yep.
anymore, and he's somebody that can fit into that really well. He can cover and he can tackle, and so those are two things that you really need in today's NFL. You have to be able to tackle the premier athletes, and
Yep.
you got to be able to try to cover somebody out in space. And and I think that Omar Brown does that well enough that maybe he doesn't get drafted, but somebody's going to get him an opportunity as a priority free agent. But it wouldn't shock me to see him like, seventh round get picked. Quentin Newsom, I definitely think is getting drafted. Like it would, I
Yeah.
would probably think day 3, depending on what his 40 time is. But he's still a guy that's pretty solid. I think he's one of those guys you could get like the 4th or 5th round that you could play a little bit as a rookie, like if you needed to, and he would be fine because he just like especially the last 2 years when he's really been the number one corner. Like I just feel like almost he just never really gets toasted. I mean, he does get beat sometimes, but there's
It's
never
not
a
for lack
day.
of effort. Yeah.
Well, there's just never a day where you're like, man, we lost because Quentin, like if he does get beat, he comes back and makes a play. So I really think he's going to have a good long career in the NFL.
Yeah, I think both Brown and Newsom have a chance to do that, and I'm excited to see where they go. And I don't think it's going to be. I think we're going to see a lot of draft picks here in the coming years, and that will continue to help with the program development as well.
Go get a real running back. Yeah, I like Emmett Johnson and Gabe Irvin's coming back. I would like to. I
You
would like
can't
to see
trust
him.
Gabe Irvin because of his health at this point. I think, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
he's still part of the equation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's weird. They're look. It doesn't seem like right now they're going to have a running back in this class. So I mean, it is a little weird to have 2 classes and essentially only have 1 running back in 2 classes. So I really feel like they almost have to. I know they're looking at the numbers right now, but if they could get a back with like multi-year eligibility, I definitely think that they would do that.
Well, and I think they have what Lamar Radcliffe coming next weekend, and there was one
I
other who.
don't know if that's
No?
going to happen. That doesn't. No, I don't think that's going to happen. So
Okay.
basically, the running back board is, from everything that I've read. This isn't my own info, but from what like Brian Munson has been saying, and even the guys at Husker 24/7, like Amari Sanders is the only take there isn't going to be anybody else taken in this class beyond Amari Sanders. So I
Gotcha.
don't think. Yeah, I don't think there's any running backs being added to this class. Unless there's another decommitment. Like I think that's why JD Crisp. I think they're like, dude, we just don't have room for you.
I honestly forgot about JD Crisp until like he said something on the on X or whatever. So
Yeah, that's why I wasn't really worried about it because
no.
I just think that it was a numbers game. Yeah, and I do think that it will raise the stock of guys going into the NFL, especially the getting a good quarterback will raise the stock of Thomas Fedoni. That will help him more than anybody on this team.
And to Rick's point, Emmett Johnson, I don't think you always want to start as a player and things like that, but I don't really think he even thought he was going to be a huge part of the running back equation this year. And now I think with a full off season, under his belt as quote unquote the starting running back, I think they'll be able to put more muscle on him, and they see a plan with him as well.
Yeah, I like Emmett Johnson. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry. So in the last, basically he had Northwestern, he had 73 yards, then 76 against Purdue, 57 against Michigan State, 84 against Maryland, which is a pretty good defense actually.
Yeah,
50 against Wisconsin. He kind of got hurt in that game.
he did.
Never got 20 carries, so I would like to see him get more attempts. But yeah, I feel I'm not worried that much about Emmett Johnson. I do think that they need to get more depth though, because Anthony Grant didn't really work out. Like you said, Gabe Irvin's hard to trust. Ramir Johnson's hard to trust. We don't know anything really about Quentin Ives at this point. So they could use like one of those 215-pound guys that can run over people that that's not like injury
What
risk
about
like
Connor
Gabe
Booth?
Irvin is. Yeah, he's not 20. He's a 2025 guy
Oh,
though.
he's 2025. Okay.
Yeah, so
Well, that's something to that's something to keep in mind for next year, because I think the fact that we haven't taken a running back in the last two classes means that we're gonna have to really focus on the position for the future. Are we confident? Why? Yeah, I think it's a fair question. Um, I'm confident in the play and ability of Johnson, Emmett Johnson. That is, I'm confident. As long as he stays healthy, that Ramir Johnson can make an impact due to his receiving ability. And Ives, the jury's still out on him just because we haven't really seen him a ton, mostly on kickoff return, if I'm not mistaken.
I feel like Ives is going to be, kind of a Ramir Johnson type. So I don't know if he's going to have like a super huge role while Ramir is still here. And I am excited to have Ramir back because I do think he can actually run the ball better than people give him credit for. And Gabe Irvin, if he can just stay healthy, but that's why you can't count on it. So then again, though, it's easy to say that because it's there. It's not like there's an unlimited amount of players you can add to this roster, right? Like you can only add 85 scholarships and NIL people. So we'll see. I mean, like I've said, I really don't think Nebraska is going to be adding like a ton of transfers, maybe like 5 at the most. Maybe, I just don't see him adding it. There's just not a lot of room on this roster.
And Vince brings up an interesting question here. I mean, it's making the transfer portal very crowded. I will say that. And I don't think you're going to see as crowded a transfer portal in the coming years because the COVID years will be gone. Um, I'm not. I don't really think it's hurting being able to bring in young guys a ton. I'm sure there's situations where you want to bring in a young guy and you can't because some guy's on his fifth or sixth year or whatever. But I don't think it's hurting a ton. I mean, if you take a look at the 2024 class, for example, there was what 27 commitments, if I'm not mistaken, 28.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's a 27 right now. I'm not
I mean,
100% sure though.
so although you may see some attrition with the 2024 class, I mean, we've seen Chris, Carlin Jones, guys like that. I feel like it's hurting the transfer portal and the kids who enter than our ability to bring in young guys. Because for the kids who enter the transfer portal, I mean, there's a ton of names in there already, and only so many spots.
Yeah, I think that it's I think that with the extra years and stuff, it has limited some of the spots for some of the lower ranked players at the Power 5 level, but I don't think it's no the young guys that the teams want still. I don't think that's impacted them at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kewan Lacey's off the table. The second he decommitted, he was done. Just like Carlon
he's
Jones,
getting looked at
zero
by Bama
chance.
now. So, I
He's
mean,
actually trending back to Old Miss now, so it's weird, but whatever.
and then Sam says I guess if we go to more of a pro offense and run the ball less, maybe we don't need a strong deep room. And I think if you get a guy like McCord, you'll see a pro offensive style a little bit. That's my take on it. I think honestly a pro offense is more what Satterfield wants to run than what we saw last year. So Sam definitely has a good point there.
And in terms of the COVID year, Josh, I think as long as you played that year, or whatever, then I think you can use it. So, but we're getting pretty close to being done with it. There's not
Which
many
is
more
I think is
guys
good
that
because there's just so many names right now, especially in the portal and things like that. It makes things really crowded.
yeah, so I mean, and it's just, college football is just a really old sport right now. So that's the same with college basketball. And so I think even when this stuff is done, you're still going to see, what the transfer portal has done, in my opinion, is with freshmen and with incoming recruits, is that it's just limited the Power Five opportunities, because teams like Nebraska, or whoever they're, if they need like a starting cornerback, they're not really relying on a freshman to come in and play that role. And
Right.
if there's not what's happening now, and what I think you're going to see more, is guys that go to the FCS for a year and then have a good season, then they're going to go into the portal. Group of five guys, all that type of stuff. So I think that it makes more competition, right? Because if you're like a 3 or 4 star freshman, you have to earn your keep more than you did before. So it makes it tough for everybody all around. There's less spots, but it just there's still scholarships. So I mean, I don't think that it's costing anybody a chance to play, but maybe a chance to play at their at the university of their choice, I guess.
Yeah, and I think also too, it just reaffirms the notion that in college football you have to win now, and although development is an important process in college football, and recruiting is still important in college football. I mean, it's a win now business, especially with the with the transfer portal and things like that. It's no longer becoming an amateur game of high school kids living out their dream. It's now becoming more of a business. Say what you want about that, but with the NIL and transfer portal and things like that, it's just a new era of college football where you need to win in order to earn your keep, so to speak.
So we'll address this topic, then we'll kind of wrap it up because I gotta get running here. But Vince, devil's advocate, why would a top tier QB play for Sat? Who has he put in the NFL? Um, this is a question we talked about this the other day a little bit. But you look at, it's not like Spencer Rattler played better with Marcus Satterfield coaching at Nebraska. So he has coached a little bit in the NFL, I believe. I don't have his resume in front of me right now. I'm just kind of fuzzy on it, but I do think that that's an issue. But at the same time, there's only like all the top tier, there's only so many Lincoln Rileys and Ryan Days out there, you know what I mean? So I feel like you know, with Matt Rule and kind of his ability to, at least kind of sell prospects on what's needed for their NFL development, I don't think that's that big of an issue.
And I don't think it's who and why would I play for Marcus Satterfield? I think it's more of a, what does Nebraska have to offer me? And I think a new facility, young weapons to play with, NIL money because it's there. We saw as soon as Matt Rule mentioned his asking price, a donation was given to the program, so it's there. And I think the chance to really turn this program around and be the guy, I think for these kids, that's a big selling point too. It's not about selling your history; it's about selling what can you do now. And I think Nebraska has a lot of, those things going for him because this is a program that wants to win and hasn't won in so long. Being the class or the season to win is a big selling point.
And yeah, Josh Tanner, basically saying we're going to get a new QB coach, but yeah, I've said that it's possible, but that means somebody has to go though. So does that mean that we have Satterfield back at tight end? That's just like, if that was going to happen, like I don't know why it hasn't happened already. If we
Because
were going to,
Josh Martin, the tight ends coach, is following Julian Fleming, so I don't think he's necessarily left yet either.
I mean, he could just go back to his role as an analyst. It's not like he could get fired, but he would have to go back to an off-field role. So that's why, like, if you're going to make that move and go get a quarterbacks coach, like, you got to do it within the next month. Like, I mean, I guess unless you're waiting for the NFL season, or you have, like Jake Peets or somebody specifically in mind.
Which would be nice. Jake Peets, I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind Jake Peets at all. How about a new alignment? Do you see us taking anybody else in the portal? Maybe another defensive back, but I don't really see us being portal heavy this year.
Yeah, I mean, maybe an offensive tackle. Like I said, you can never have enough of those guys. But if Princely Mammalian wants to come here,
Yeah.
but yeah, outside of that, like outside of really really good players, I think quarterback, receiver, and maybe linebacker, and that's probably about it. But all right, everybody. Well, it's been a lot of fun chatting with you guys. I do have to go now, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. We'll be back for our Monday episode for our podcast. So check us out. And thank you for everybody for joining us around the country. We had people from all over, because I know there's Husker fans all over the world. So it's great to interact with you guys.
Thanks,
I love.
Steve. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, we love the community that we're building with you guys. So as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.